Imagine buying your dream ranch after 15 years of hard work, only to have a random woman from the HOA call the cops on you for simply parking your truck on your own land. What started as a petty complaint turned into a legal war, and in the end, she was banned from the entire valley. This is the true story of how a so-called Karen tried to control my life, and how karma finally caught up with her. I never thought peace would come at such a price. 15 years of busting my back in construction, early mornings, late nights, double shifts. All for one dream, to one day own a piece of land where I could breathe, work on my truck, raise horses, and maybe even grow old in peace. So when I finally bought my ranch, 22 acres of heaven just outside of Silver Valley, I thought my struggles were behind me. But that's when she showed up. Her name was Deborah, though most folks around here just called her Karen, and trust me, she earned that title. Now, I didn't know it at the time, but Karen was the unofficial queen of the local HOA. And this AOA wasn't like a regular neighborhood association. No, sir. This one operated like a mini government, with fines, rules, and more drama than a daytime soap. I hadn't even finished moving in when I heard the first knock at my door. Knock, knock, knock. Slightly aggressive. I opened it, thinking it was a neighbor bringing pie or maybe welcoming me to the valley. But instead, it was her. Blonde bob haircut, sunglasses even though it was cloudy, and a little clipboard in her hand like she was about to conduct a building inspection. "Hi, I'm Deborah with the HOA. I noticed you've parked a commercial vehicle in your driveway," she said, frowning at my Dodge Ram 3500 like it had insulted her mother. I blinked. "You mean my truck?" "Yes. That kind of vehicle isn't allowed to be visible from the road. You'll need to move it into a garage." I laughed. "Ma'am, this is a ranch. My garage hasn't even been built yet." "Well," she said sharply, "we'll be issuing a notice. It's a violation." That was the first of many. Over the next few weeks, Karen made it her personal mission to make my life hell. Every little thing, my barn being built without prior visual approval, my dog barking at night, even the flag I flew outside, was met with a warning, a note, or a call to the county office. And then came the cops. That day I had just come back from town. I parked my truck right outside the barn where I usually unload feed for my horses. Not 5 minutes later, I saw flashing red and blue lights. Sheriff's deputy walks up, hand resting on his belt. "We got a report of a suspicious vehicle trespassing on private land." I was stunned. "Suspicious vehicle? I live here." He checked his notes, confused. "Karen reported it. Said it wasn't registered to this address." I showed him the deed, my ID, even waved over my neighbor Pete, who vouched for me. The officer apologized and left, but that's when it hit me. This wasn't about rules. It wasn't about a truck or noise or aesthetics. It was personal. The morning after the cops were called, I was already up before sunrise. I remember I was working on setting up a temporary fence along the east pasture. The soil was soft from last night's rain. I was finally starting to feel settled in. At least, until I saw 2 SUVs slowly crawling up my gravel driveway. I wiped the sweat from my brow as the vehicle stopped. Out stepped Karen. And with her, 2 other HOA board members I hadn't met before. They didn't even bother with a good morning. Karen stepped forward, wearing her trademark fake smile and holding a manila folder. "We're here for a formal inspection," she said, like she was some kind of marshal. "Of what?" I asked, confused. "Your property," she said. "There are growing concerns from the association about multiple violations." I told them they weren't allowed to be on my land without permission. Her reply? "The HOA guidelines give us access for inspection purposes. It's in the covenants." Now here's the kicker. When I bought the property, it was listed as outside HOA jurisdiction, something my realtor made sure of. But Karen had a different story. There was a vote last year. This land was annexed into the HOA district before your purchase. I felt my stomach drop. Was it true? Could she really do that? That night, I stayed up going through every document from my closing folder. I reread the deed, the zoning permits, even the HOA's own digital bylaws online. And then I found it. Buried deep in a poorly scanned PDF was a conditional annexation agreement. It was never signed by the previous landowner. That meant, legally, the HOA had no authority over my land. I printed out copies and had them notarized the next day. Then I filed a cease and desist with the county. But did Karen back down? No. She doubled down. The very next day, she stood at the edge of my property line with a drone. That's right, she flew a drone over my barn and took pictures of my supposed illegal structures. I called the sheriff. This time, I wasn't letting it slide. Deputy Harris, the same officer from last week, came by again. This time, he wasn't so calm. "She's filing harassment complaints against you," he said, frustrated. "But from what I can tell, she's the one pushing boundaries." I showed him the cease and desist. He took copies. Then he did something unexpected. He shook my hand and said, "I'll talk to the county commissioner." Turns out, I wasn't the only one. Other neighbors had complaints about Karen too. Turns out she'd been bullying elderly residents, threatening fines over unpainted fences, garden gnomes, and even mailbox colors. But nobody ever pushed back, until now. The envelope was thick, cream-colored, embossed with a law firm's seal I didn't recognize. I sat at my kitchen table, holding it like it might explode. My gut told me whatever was inside wasn't going to be friendly, and I was right. Karen had hired an attorney. Count I, defamation of character. Count 2, harassment of HOA personnel. Count 3, unauthorized construction on regulated land. They were threatening me with a civil lawsuit, demanding I remove my non-permitted structures, issue a public apology, and pay a fine of $12,000 for damages to community order. It would have been laughable if it wasn't so real. I sat there in silence for a long time. This wasn't just about a truck anymore. Karen wanted control. Balance scale enter, my lawyer. I wasn't about to roll over and hand my life to a clipboard warrior in yoga pants. I called up my old buddy Marcus, retired Marine, now one of the sharpest real estate attorneys in the county. He laughed when I showed him the letter. "They don't have a case," he said. "They're hoping you'll panic and cave." But Marcus didn't stop at advice. He took my documents, deed, county filings, proof the HOA had no authority, and filed a motion to dismiss. Then he sent our own letter back. A formal notice of trespassing, unauthorized surveillance, and false reporting to law enforcement, all backed with evidence. Drone photos, Karen's emails, and even testimony from Deputy Harris. That should have been enough to shut her down. But this wasn't just about rules anymore. It was about ego. Bomb Karen's power trip explodes. A week later, Karen didn't just ignore the motion. She hosted an emergency HOA meeting, one where I wasn't invited. But news travels fast in a town like Silver Valley. I got a call from Pete, my neighbor. "You're not gonna believe this," he said. "She's trying to get your ranch condemned." I thought he was joking. He wasn't. Karen had filed a petition with the HOA board to officially designate the ranch as a public nuisance, claiming noise pollution, traffic disturbances, and even animal endangerment. It was absurd. A ranch being accused of being too loud, for having animals. Brain narrator's thoughts, "This is bigger than me." That night, I sat out on the porch, watching the stars. I started to wonder, what if this had happened to someone else? Someone older or someone who didn't know their rights. What if Karen had gotten away with it? It made me angry. Not just for me, but for everyone she'd pushed around over the years. That's when I made a decision. This wasn't just a feud anymore. It was a fight for everyone she'd bullied into silence. Marcus didn't waste time. He drafted a formal complaint, not just against the HOA, but against Karen herself. He sent copies to the county commissioner, the sheriff's department, and the local newspaper. Then we published everything. The drone footage, the false police report, the harassment letters, the proof that my land was never legally part of the HOA. We posted it all online, on the community Facebook group, the local town forum, even next door. And within 48 hours, the reaction exploded. Speech balloon, the valley speaks out. Turns out, I wasn't the only one. People started sharing their stories. She fined us $200 for a child's inflatable pool. Karen said our garden was too wild and demanded we cut it back. She threatened my 87-year-old dad over his flagpole height. One woman even said Karen told her to rehome her dog because it was too large for community aesthetics. The comment sections lit up with angry residents. Screenshots of Karen's emails, HOA memos, and even recordings from her confrontations with neighbors surfaced. Karen wasn't just disliked. She had become the villain of Silver Valley. Megaphone the public meeting. Then came the meeting that changed everything. The county commissioner called for an emergency hearing to review the complaints. I showed up early, but the room was already packed. Farmers, teachers, veterans, young families, people who had never spoken out before, now standing together. Karen walked in late, flanked by her lawyer and wearing her usual air of superiority. She expected to be feared. Instead, she was booed. The commissioner opened the floor. I spoke first. I didn't yell. I didn't accuse. I just laid out the truth, calmly, clearly, with documents in hand. Then Pete spoke. Then Linda, the retired librarian. Then Jackson, the teenager Karen once tried to report for mowing lawns without a permit. One after another, people told their stories. And slowly, Karen's smirk began to crack. Balance scale commissioner's verdict. After 2 hours, the commissioner stood. Based on the overwhelming evidence and public testimony, he said, we are launching a formal review of the HOA's operations and authority. And then he dropped the bombshell. Effective immediately, Deborah L. Morgan is suspended from all HOA activities pending investigation. The crowd erupted in applause. I just sat there, stunned. We did it. For the first time in years, someone had finally stood up to Karen and won. She's suing for emotional distress, slander, and loss of reputation, Marcus said. Is she serious? I asked, half laughing. Dead serious. But she made a mistake. She brought this to court, real court, where HOA politics don't matter. And here we have the truth. He was right. Karen wanted control. What she got was a spotlight she couldn't hide from anymore. So we prepared. Witness statements. Photographic evidence. Her drone videos. The cease and desist. County records. The sheriff's notes. Even testimonies from HOA members who had quietly resigned because of her tyranny. We had everything. Balance scale, the final courtroom battle. It wasn't dramatic like the movies. No shouting. No slamming fists. Just facts. Karen sat across from me in a crisp gray suit, jaw tight. Her lawyer spoke first, painting me as an angry landowner with a grudge. He said Karen had worked tirelessly to maintain the beauty of the valley and that her actions were within her rights as an HOA leader. Then it was our turn. Marcus stood up and simply said, Your Honor, this case isn't about community. It's about abuse of power. And then we laid it all out. One by one, the judge reviewed each document. He listened to recorded HOA meetings, watched footage from Karen's drone, and read statements from neighbors who had suffered under her iron rule. By the end of the hearing, Karen's expression had gone pale. And then the judge delivered his verdict. This court finds no merit in the plaintiff's claims. The defendant acted within his rights to protect his property. Furthermore, the court recommends that a civil inquiry be opened into the HOA's governance practices. Translation? We won. And Karen? She didn't just lose her case. She lost everything. Firecracker Karen is banned from the valley. After the verdict, more dominoes fell. Residents filed an internal vote to dissolve the current HOA board. Karen was voted out. But that wasn't all. The county commissioner issued a formal order banning Karen from holding any administrative or organizational role in residential communities within Silver Valley permanently. She was also fined for unauthorized surveillance and public nuisance complaints. And the cherry on top? She was ordered to issue a written apology, not just to me, but to every resident she had harassed. Her reign was over. Sunrise over mountains narrator's reflection, peace, finally. Now I wake up every morning to the sound of wind through the trees, horses running across open pastures, and my dog barking at squirrels like he owns the place. There are no more warning letters. No more drone flyovers. No more cops showing up because I dared to park my truck on my land. Silver Valley is quieter these days. Calmer. Free. And me? I didn't just win a case. I reclaimed my peace and helped a whole town do the same. Karen Morgan was banned from holding any HOA or administrative position in the county of Silver Valley. The HOA has since restructured. Today, residents enjoy open community meetings, transparency, and zero drone surveillance.